Gavin Newsom is stepping up to set an example for the country's government officials who are slacking on their job, and he's cracking down on the thing that keeps us all awake at night. He is passing legislation to criminalize memes, to basically criminalize humor. So yeah, that's a thing that is really happening. So let's have a look at some of this. This is a tweet that the king of communism himself put out there. He said, "I just signed a bill to make this illegal in the state of California. You can no longer knowingly distribute an ad or other election communications that contain materially deceptive content, including deep fakes." So what he is pointing to there is not necessarily what he is targeting here and why. I just have to point out, as we get into this story, I can't think of anything that my family and I are more concerned about than parodies of political ads, which is what he's talking about. Let's not go back to criminalizing illegal border crossings or throwing people in jail who steal from gas stations and convenience stores, or issuing legal consequences to teachers who knowingly and willingly and intentionally show sexually explicit material to kids, or to drug users who openly deal narcotics on our streets. We've apparently just got to address the parody crisis in America, which is what Newsom is talking about here. What got Newsom's nose out of joint on this issue was after Elon Musk retweeted an altered campaign video of Kamala Harris, where an AI version of her voice was used over top of a slideshow of everything she has, or more accurately, has not accomplished as vice president, and her utter failings in this role, especially after being handed the second highest position of power in the entire country. If you're on the left, you have been brainwashed to believe that it is not only the government's job to protect you from hearing things that they deem as dishonest or unsafe, but that when they censor information, speech, memes, or videos, it's because they want what's best for you. The rest of us know that that is completely insane to believe, but that is what so many people on the left have been brainwashed and programmed to believe. I think as we witnessed through COVID, we saw a mass psychological experiment as the media, the education system, social media, and big pharma all worked in conjunction with the Democrats and their anti-free speech and information control narrative to spread things that they wanted people to believe, to see what they could get people to do, like share their medical information all over social media, and to gauge what percentage of the population would comply and go along with this idea that you earn your freedom through compliance. So as much as the rest of us who still operate with common sense and logic want to believe that people will recognize that this is dangerous and against the Constitution, and we think that people are going to stand up against it, I truly think that especially after COVID, people's brains never recovered, and they now believe that a move like this from our government is totally acceptable. They were prepped to accept an authoritarian move like this in America, and now there are so many people that are just not even going to question it. They're all in on censorship, which is why so many people don't even bat an eye when Kamala Harris says things like, we need to have more control over what people post on social media. And as California carries one of the highest populations of people who have fallen for this insane narrative, it's why Gavin Newsom can get away with passing something like this and get very little, if any, pushback. So the left truly now thinks that free speech means whatever the government allows you to say and whatever they allow you to hear. Like, truly, that's where we're at. So let's have a look at this. Gavin Newsom, he did hold true to his word, one of the very few times in the history of his governorship. And he has done the thing that he said he would do, and he signed this bill. Now, one of the best takes on this issue comes from Representative Kevin Riley out of California. And we're going to go through some of the things that he had to say about it, starting out with some of the words to highlight the death of comedy in California.
The death of satire in California, or more seriously, to lament a serious blow that has been struck against freedom of speech and a healthy democratic process in California. And that is because the California legislature has passed and Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a law explicitly designed to outlaw political parodies. We don't need to speculate about this being the purpose of this law because the governor said so directly. Several weeks ago, a parody video of Kamala Harris began circulating on social media. Governor Newsom reposted it, and he said, quote, "This should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is." And this week, he made good on that promise. The governor again reposted the parody and said, quote, "I just signed a bill to make this illegal in the state of California." So sort of on its face, a classic authoritarian move. A person in power sees speech he doesn't like, sees speech that threatens his power, and so he uses that power, uses whatever tools he has at his disposal to silence those who would dare speak against him.
That's what this is really about. This is not about protection, just like it wasn't about health and safety during COVID. This is about banning speech that threatens the power of the authoritarian. And Representative Riley does go on to say that, yes, there is a discussion that needs to be had about regulating AI generated material in general. The rapid progression of AI material and its capabilities is something that truly does terrify me. Like, these images and videos are becoming more and more realistic and very difficult to tell if they're real or not. And I have also talked a lot on this channel about the problems that are happening because how easy it is to generate AI material. We've had AI images of teens being created by their high school peers just by using a photo from a yearbook regenerated to be sexually graphic and violating. Taylor Swift herself had an experience with AI generated photos of her that were disturbing and gross. And I know that she's not the only public figure to experience that. I also talked within the last few months about the story of this high school principal who was the target of an AI generated voice recording made by a disgruntled staff member, which had him saying some pretty horrendous things and got him suspended from his job and targeted in his community. But it was discovered months later that the whole thing was fake, but unfortunately the damage was already done. So there are things that need to be addressed regarding the use of AI, but that is not the concern of Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or any of these people who pretend that these political moves are for our good. Point is that they don't want us to be able to use these tools against them, but they will have no problem using them against us. So to continue, Representative Riley goes on to point out the importance of being able to use parody in general for highlighting important aspects of the public discussion. And the reason that it's so effective is because it does catch people's attention in a way that a regular debate or a news segment is just not going to do. And what makes these things funny is that the absurdity of the material is rooted in truth on some level. He goes into how this is clearly protected under the First Amendment as free speech and talks about why courts have not banned it in the past.
The Supreme Court has long held that parodies of public figures are protected even if they are, quote, outrageous. And the court has long held that any satirical statement is protected so long as it cannot reasonably be interpreted as stating actual facts. So, in short, if a reasonable person could discern that something is a parody, then it's protected by the First Amendment. So the question when evaluating this new law would be, is it stepping over that line? And we have a very clear test case in the Kamala Harris video that, in the governor's own acknowledgement, was the inspiration for the law. It's exactly the sort of thing that the law was designed to stamp out. So let's just look at a few lines from this Kamala Harris video and see whether a reasonable person would actually believe that it's Kamala Harris. The first line of the video is this: "I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate." Now, would a reasonable person think that Kamala Harris said that when they see this video, that she actually made that statement? The video goes on. It says, "If you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist." Would a reasonable person believe that was actually Kamala Harris saying that in that video? It goes on. "Joe Biden taught me rule number one, carefully hide your total incompetence." Would a reasonable person believe that this is actually Kamala Harris saying rule number one, carefully hide your total incompetence? Now, one of the keys to effective satire, and you can judge for yourself whether this is effective or not, is that it actually does illuminate a deeper underlying truth. So one might argue, I would argue, that Kamala Harris's performance as Border Czar was in fact catastrophic. But a reasonable person will not actually believe that she is saying that herself in this video.
The root of the problem that Gavin Newsom has with this video and material like it overall is that it's not about AI. It's not about protecting us. It's not about guarding against spreading misinformation or disinformation, which is what he and other Democrat dictators like to reference when they make their justifications for censoring speech. It's not about them worrying about people taking these things seriously, because we know that Kamala Harris would not actually say any of these things. And the non-comical aspect of what is being said in this video is that they're all true. So I'm sure that I don't need to explain it, but makes this a parody is the idea of hearing Kamala Harris say the outrageous things that we know are true that she would never, ever admit. The contrast between this supposedly unifying, inspirational, joyful pro-American dream act that she's been putting on for weeks versus the truth of how destructive her administration has been makes this parody that much more attention grabbing, because these are not only things that she would never say, but they are things that she needs people to forget about her or to not be aware of at all. And even thinking about her failings at the border or acknowledging that she was not selected as VP for her qualifications or any of the other things that this AI ad accurately points out, that is what threatens people's support of her. And people will listen to something like this. They will listen to the whole thing and they will laugh and they will share it, not because they think it's true or that anyone else will think it is, but because it's outrageous to imagine Kamala or anyone on the left ever openly admitting who they are and what they stand for or how bad they are for this country. And the more people hear these things, the more they will question what he says, what she says, what the mainstream media says. And that is what fosters distrust in them. And that's what this is all about.